MarketPulse by SC Securities and Daily FT. Our effort is to bring you the most important insight for you to have a better pulse about the equity markets of Sri Lanka. And today, our focus is on the tile sector. And we are extremely privileged to have with us today Mr. Aravinda Pereira, the Managing Director of Royal Ceramics PLC, and also Mr. Mahendra Jayasekara, the Managing Director of Lanka Wall Tile PLC and Lanka Tile PLC. Aravinda, Mahendra, welcome to MarketPulse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To start off the conversation, may I start with Aravinda? Can you give us a brief introduction about the Royal Ceramics and the journey so far?
Yeah, Royal Ceramics started first as a manufacturer of tiles. Our first plant was in Aliaguda. While we were manufacturing that, the company also found there was another factory in Horana which is not being operated, and we bought it over. So that became our second factory. Meanwhile, the company also decided to be a major shareholder of our main competitor then, the Lanka Tiles, through Lanka Ceramics, which we did that. And later on, about 11 years ago, we decided that tiles are not going to be looked by Royal Ceramics. So we decided to have our own sanitary ware, which we normally call bathware as well. So we set up a factory to produce that as well. So that's our journey, 30 years plus, and we are a strong player along with our partner Lanka Tiles, and we produce a lot of tiles for Sri Lankan market, and also we produce bathware.
All right, so with that, Mahendra, let's do a brief introduction about the two companies as well.
Yes, actually Lanka Wall Tiles started in 1974, and the way it started was also a little funny because at that time an American buyer who was buying tiles from Japan wanted to shift a Japanese factory to Sri Lanka, and they dismantled the factory in Japan, tile factory in Japan, and installed it in Balangoda in Sri Lanka as a subsidiary of the Ceylon Ceramics Corporation, which was later privatized in 1994 to be exact as Lanka Ceramic Limited. And Lanka Wall Tiles as a company started in 1974. We started manufacturing tiles in Balangoda in 1976, and thereafter Lanka Wall Tiles started its subsidiary Lanka Tiles to make floor tiles in 1984. So that's the journey, and now together we are the largest manufacturer of floor and wall tiles in the country, and we are the largest player as a tile seller in the country.
Okay.
So that's our brief journey.
Right. And Mahendra, now if I take your attention to the current context, the sector, the tile sector has performed exceptionally well between the last few quarters. And as a result, we saw the investor interest also towards the tile sector companies has been increasing. So what is your view on this current background?
See, actually, we have to put it in the right perspective, Dilusha, because if you see, before 2019, before the pandemic, the tile companies was really struggling. And we had actually so much so, we had 10 months stock, really, 10 months inventory. We were struggling to sell because the imports were invading the market, especially at lower prices. We just could not sell our production. And so much so, in certain times, we had to curtail our production because we could not bear the inventory build-up. But then with the outbreak of the pandemic, the government took this decision to impose import controls. So when the import controls came into the market, now before import controls, Lanka Tiles Group with Lanka Wall Tiles and Lanka Tiles together had only 20% of the market really. But now this market opened up for us with the import ban. With no imports coming, earlier imports accounted for 60% of the market. So that 60% just froze overnight, and that became available to us. Now, what happened was basically 2019, 2020-21. As a result, we were able to bring down our inventory buildup from 10 months to about a month, really, and so much so now we are running with about 3 weeks stock. So that is why we have shown phenomenal growth in profits, really. And that is why there have been renewed investor interest in the stock. And that is why we have performed exceptionally well in the share market as well as in our financials. So that is the background. But going forward, whether we can report this phenomenal growth, I would say unlikely, because we are running our factories at capacity and we have very, I would say, limited plans to expand production. We have some plans, we have limited plans to expand production. So that's the story. That is why, that is the background to the phenomenal growth you saw. That is the background to the investor interest in the stock, and that's the outlook for the future.
Okay. And Arvind, if I take your attention to the cost side of it, now even though the tile sector is doing exceptionally well, the rupee depreciation and the higher freight charges must have driving up the raw material cost phenomenally. And how do you look at these changes and how do you
Yeah,
manage?
you are right. Because of the currency depreciation plus the freight cost, our the costs have been going up. But that is not the full story, because the suppliers are also increasing their prices, local plus overseas. Local because they have to, obviously their cost of living and all that is going up. They have to look after their people, so they are also wanting to increase their prices. If you take overseas, their energy costs are going up, so they are also increasing their prices. After a very long time, we have been managing to keep these costs in a kind of a tight hold, but now we see that these prices are going up. So that adds to rupee depreciation plus the freight cost. But freight cost, yeah, it's a problem. But the bigger problem would be the unreliability of imports coming here and impossibility of exports going out because of shipping issues, not being able to get the containers in time. Now last month my Bathwa exports, I couldn't export a single container because there were no containers. Even when the containers are ready, there are no ships to take it back. So uncertainty plus the charges. Now, yes, costs have gone up, but we are in a way lucky, even Lanka Tiles. 5 years ago, we decided that we want to have a look at our cost structure. We have been running cost improvement projects for the last 5 years. Energy saving, efficiency improvements, yield improvements, reduction of waste, from the lowest operator upwards. Large number of our staff are directly involved in these projects. Through the project, we have managed to keep the prices, the cost part in check. So, for quite a long time, our tile prices have not been increased. We have increased our bathware prices before the pandemic. A lot of people think that we have increased our prices during this import restriction, which is not true. However, I must say that going forward, especially the gas. Now, gas has two issues. One is the forex part of it. It is imported to Sri Lanka, although we buy it locally. Number two is the gas prices in the world market has gone up with the petroleum prices going up. So therefore, gas prices constitute the largest component of our cost. A lot of people think that it's a raw material, but it's the gas. Now gas prices have skyrocketed. We have managed to keep all this in check, but I don't think we can do it for a very long time. If we are to keep our margins, then we do have to look at our pricing again. That day is not very far.
Okay. So as you say, like the prices not yet increased, but that can be happen in the future. But I think the perspective in the customers must be the tile prices have gone up.
Well, we have discussed with the government officials as well. People have come and looked at our books, and we are very open. And we took a one full page advertisement about a year ago saying that we are not increase our tile prices. We are very open about it, but but that's a fact.
Okay. And Mahendra, now as Aravind correctly touched upon the gas prices, the energy cost, but how the management is controlling or trying to maneuver through these changes, especially when it comes to the energy cost going up.
See, energy cost going up, we have very limited options, Dilusha. Of course, as Aravind quite rightly said a few years ago, we undertook many projects to save our cost or change our cost structure, so to speak. Now, one component of that was basically improving gas efficiency in our production process. We have done that. We have probably achieved about 10 to 15% production efficiency in terms of gas. But the problem is thereafter, it is very difficult to improve gas efficiency. Now, what has happened is if you take the last two years, gas prices, at the moment, gas prices are all-time high. Now, some tend to think that we are paying for LPG these government administered prices. It is not so. We are not paying the cylinder prices to buy bulk gas. Now, Lanka Tiles is the single largest consumer of gas in the country. Our requirement is over 1,000 metric tons. I think Arvind's requirement is about 850 metric tons a month. So, our requirement is very big. So, when the gas prices go up, we are pushed to a corner, really. And there is very limited. I mean, our ability to do things is very limited, really, in terms of improving gas efficiency, and we have done a lot. And one thing I want to say is, if you take the entire ceramic industry, to be fair by the entire ceramic industry, not only tile sector, this industry today in Sri Lanka has yesterday's technology. Not say 5 years ago technology. Yesterday's technology we have. So that way our factories are quite up to date, and driving cost efficiencies beyond a certain point is very difficult. So we have to manage it, and finally we have to bite the bullet, right? As companies as well as consumers, you have to pay the economic price of the product.
I need to add something here. We are talking about costs. Mahendra said that we had 8 to 10 months stock. We also had the same. It took a lot of working capital tied up there. A lot of costs. We were paying banks. At the second time, I'm new to the company, 5 years only. During that my short period, we have to rent 4 more new warehouses. And additional handling is expensive. And so this became a main issue. Now, with the pandemic, we have managed to dispose these stocks to a great extent. So what really happened was that our cash flows came in, and we have managed to reduce our bank borrowings, and we don't have working capital facilities at the moment. Also, we got the benefit of interest rates during the last year. So if you look at the P&L account, you will see the financial costs have come down in our favor.
Okay, so Aravind, now as you mentioned, the cost has gone up, energy and the raw materials, but at the same time you managed to save in terms of the inventory management and the working capital cycle. So when you take all these together, how does it affect your margins?
So if we are to keep the same profitability or improve on profitability, we have to produce more and we have to sell more, right? Because economies of scale, if I increase the capacity of one factory, the other fixed overhead absorption becomes much more easier, and overall cost should slightly come down because of that. So these are things that we are looking at right now. There is no one answer, but we are looking at everything that is possible to keep the cost at today's level. Very daunting task.
Right. Mahendra, now due to import restrictions, there's some severe shortage also in the floor tiles, wall tiles, and ceramic ware. So, does the company have any excess capacity to exploit in the future?
Not really. Actually, yes, you use the word severe. Now, now, actually, in my opinion, what has happened is, I mean, if you really put some numbers to this whole thing, before the pandemic, when the imports were open, right, the total tile market was roughly about 30 million square meters a year. Right now, it has dropped due to the contraction of the economy, contraction of the construction sector. It has dropped to about 24 million square meters. Right now, between the three local manufacturers, Lanka Tiles, Royal Ceramic, and Mac Tiles, the total supply is about 20 million. So there is this 20% shortage of supply. So you can call it severe, you can call it a shortage of supply, but that is, there is a 20% gap really we have to fill, and we are unable to fill that right now. But I think what is happening is at Lanka Tiles, we don't have any excess capacity right now. We are running the factory at the full capacity really, and of course, we are planning to expand our capacity by about 4,500 square meters. That means our total capacity right now is about 20,000 square meters a day. It will go up by another 4,500 square meters a day by about July next year, because expansions are in this industry long gestation expansions. We can't decide and expand capacity tomorrow, because machinery manufacturers take a long time, because these are custom made machines. So that will happen in June, July. But in the meantime, I understand MacTiles is already undertaking an expansion. I think that capacity should come on stream anytime soon, really. So with that, I think there should be some breathing space really for customers, and there will be a little better availability of tiles in the market. So I think that will address some of the supply issues we have. But long term, whether we will expand capacity, whether we will double, triple capacity, very unlikely, Dilusha, because there are lots of problems associated with that kind of grand expansion plans.
Can I add?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. What
See,
else here?
Sri Lanka Ceramic and Glass Council, both of us are members. We undertook a study. We looked at the expansion plans of 3 tile manufacturers, 2 of us and McTiles, and there are 4 supply manufacturers of bathware. We did some calculations and we have given that report to government authorities, very high authorities, and we told them when the expansion plans are completed, both for bathware and tiles, somewhere July, August next year, present market demand can be met. I believe MacTiles is installing machinery. We did a very small marginal expansion in Honda plant last April. Coming year also we are looking at about 20% expansion next year. Aliyogoda plant, we looked at about 4 different scenarios. Aliyogoda, but we will expand only if there are 2 reasons. One is if the local demand goes up to a very high level, which can absorb our expansion, number 1. Number 2, or whether we can export some of it. So I need to talk about not only tile, because I am a manufacturer of ceramic ware, the sanitary ware. We are already exporting about 20% of our sanitary ware to good international names, and we manufacture as per their specification and put their name and send it across. This started because we had 10 months of stock. That is why we started. But even during the pandemic, I had to keep them happy. They're asking for more. So we have done everything that is necessary to expand our sanitary ware production without any capital cost. But we are ready to bring machinery if we know the government stand on sanitary ware imports. As you know, that tile import is restricted, but sanitary ware is not. So we are looking at future. we have done everything that is possible. We are waiting further direction. But I think the finance minister, after the budget meeting, he was on a show, and he said that he believes that tile industry can be self-sufficient or something to that effect. So the government, if the government take a stand, I think manufacturers are ready to respond to that.
So do you expect the sanitary ware import restrictions on that?
You see,
aspect
the
as well?
restrictions came not because we asked for it. It was a need of the country, and we really appreciate, and that's why we are doing everything that is possible to fulfill this gap during this short period. But we are committed to look at expansion. In fact, there were so many other prospective newcomers who were looking at machinery and all that, but I don't know what the situation now. But the real local requirement as such, I think, can be met if all the proposed plans are fulfilled.
Now, Mahendra, you and Aravind both spoke about the capacity increase to a certain level. So, if I may ask, how these expansions will be financed? Will it be through debt financing, or will you be looking at equity financing?
No, actually, it will be through internally generated funds, Dirusha. We will not be. There is no major requirement for debt right now because our cash flows are strong, and that makes it fresh equity financing unnecessary. Also, there is no need for fresh equity financing.
And,
It will probably be a mix.
mix.
We do have our own cash generations, but timing is a factor that we have to look at when it comes to financing. When we are going to need it, and whether our own generation is going to be adequate. I believe it is so, but only we'll have to wait and see how it works out.
And also the demand that you both were in the same page saying in the future we should be able to manage the local demand within the internal capacities. But if I take your attention to these the iconic projects like Port City project, there is the increase demand for tiles and even sanitary ware can be with an excess capacity, like that there can be a huge demand. And are there any plans to exploit these demands in the future?
It's like okay.
No, sorry.
That's an iconic project, and if all requirement comes at the same time, it's going to be extremely difficult for Sri Lankan manufacturers to meet it. And also, we are aware that such projects always carry certain waiving of import levies and all that. And most of the engineers, architects, owners are going to be overseas. So they have to be comfortable with us. But I'm sure that certain part of that business will come our way. But if it's a staggered thing, there's a lot that Sri Lankan companies can do. But if all comes at the same time, I believe it's going to be. We will not be putting a factory to meet that demand, because after that, what next? That question is going to be there. But we are hopeful that something will come our way.
Yeah, how I look at it is, if you take Lanka Tiles Group, our total production for a month is 600,000 square meters, right? That is 6 million square feet, right? Aravinda's production is very close to that, right? Now, in my opinion, tile industry cannot sustain itself unless there is domestic construction in this country, right? These iconic projects, whatever you call it, cannot take our supply, because how many million square feet are under construction? How many million? Because Lanka Tiles, I said 5 million square feet a month we produce. He does another close to 5 million, so 10 million square feet. So in these construction projects, how many million square feet are being built? So actually we have to rely heavily on, yes, of course these projects are welcome, because that will raise the quality of the product demanded by this project, and we are also compelled to raise the quality of the product we supply to the market. But we won't be able to sustain operations unless there is village level housing construction. For that, people should be spending their disposable income in improving their homes as well as constructing new homes. Otherwise, we can't go on.
So, in your opinion, Sri Lanka can be self-sufficient in terms of tile manufacturing and
At the current rate of economic growth, yes.
Right. Okay. And in the same context now, as you currently mentioned, the capacity is there. So, do you look at export opportunities as well in that?
Yeah, of course, because Lanka Tiles is the largest exporter of tiles from Sri Lanka, and actually I should take legitimate pride in saying Lanka Tiles is the only brand that is exported out of Sri Lanka with the word Lanka as part of the name. There is no other brand going out to the world with Lanka name as part of the brand. Lanka Tiles is the only brand, because we export to USA, we export to Australia, we export to Japan. It's all under Lanka Tiles brand, and we carry our country's name to the world. And our export potential is immense, Dilusha. Actually, in 2019, we took a big step forward in our exports. 2019 August, USA imposed anti-dumping duty on 2,000 products coming from China to USA. And one product was mosaic tiles, ceramic mosaic tiles. And we saw that product under anti-dumping duty. And what we did was we quickly entered into a joint venture. By December, we had signed a joint venture, tripartite joint venture with the American and a Chinese to set up a mosaic plant in Sri Lanka, which is now operational. And we export the entire production of mosaics to USA right now. So there are lots of export opportunities, but we have to select the right product. And now, in my opinion, what we need to do is, as an industry, is to go up the value chain, because one day these import restrictions are going to go away and the imports are come to the market, and we will be compelled to compete with exports of other countries, imports to this country. So we need to add value to our products, and we need to sell a value-added product to the world. Now, say, put it in the right perspective. Before we started exporting mosaics, we were selling a square meter of tiles in the world market, say average price of say $6 to $7 a square meter. Mosaics, we sell between $15 to $30 a square meter. So you can see the value addition we can achieve, and that is what we are focusing on.
And any plans from Royal Ceramics?
Well, our tile imports have been very, very limited. But where we export about 20% of our production, we have more requirements coming from our buyers. But at the moment, we can't give it because we need to build up our stocks for the local market. So once that is done, I think we will be exporting more. We have very recently decided that we are going to look at exports in a different way than what we have been looking for. Because when we were selling everything that we were producing, we really never had to look at exports. Traditionally, Lanka Tiles Group have been exporting. So during that period only, then when we started building up inventories only, we started looking at even Bhatia. So we will be looking at very carefully. I earlier said that if we are to expand our Heligood factory, that will be if only a part can be absorbed by our exports. So we are working towards that.
And also, in the same note, what is the impact of this 25% one-off tax, the surcharge tax proposed by the budget on Royal Ceramics?
The modalities of how you calculate is not clear. So whether if it works out so that we have to pay taxes, then we do have to pay that. There's no issue with that. It will have some impact on our expansion plans, because when you take our cash flow, we earlier said that we were trying to do everything out of our own internal cash rather than borrowing. So we have so many things to do. One is the taxation, number two is expansion, number three is dividends. So how you juggle this and put them into some picture? We are waiting until we have the full method of calculation. We are waiting to see how it works.
Is it same for the
Yeah, I mean, if you really take the wordings in the budget, the total impact on Lanka Tiles will be 600 million.
Okay. What about Lanka Volatiles?
No, Lanka Volatiles is not a company that has made over 2 billion rupee profit during the year. So that's why I said, if you take the wording of the budget, it will be 600 million, because we are not really still sure whether it will be on group profits or whether it will be individual company profits, or like the super gain tax earlier, whether it will be taxed at the group level, and the group will be able to divide the total liability among the contributing company. It's not clear. But as the wording goes, it's 600.
And also, Arvind, if the import restrictions, if there's any change, how dependent are you on these government policies?
Well, it's like this. So this happened only for 2 years. Before that, we tried, we survived. And that's going to be the same in the future as well. But on the other hand, we have seen costs are going up in other exporting countries. China costs are going up. China energy cost is going up. Dollar has gone up. So the people who are importing to Sri Lanka also will be buying probably at a much higher cost. And so we will compete with them.
All right, great. So with all these discussions, last but not least, may I ask both of you gentlemen, what's the future plans for next 5 years or so for the first for Mr. Mahindra, for Lanka Volatiles and Lanka Tiles? What can the investors look for and expect in the future?
See, it's a very subjective question, because it will depend on, as Aravind said, the policy framework we are going to see within the next few years. But as things stand now, as I said earlier also, we will be expanding our capacity in a limited way, that is through Lanka Volatiles, and that will improve Lanka Volatiles group profitability. There is no question about that. But then if you ask me next 5 years, now if import restrictions are dismantled, and if imports start coming to the country, we will have certain amount of difficulties in competing if a proper tariff structure is not implemented. Because Diluja, I always say this, we have to understand this, Sri Lanka will always struggle to manufacture ceramic products competitively. Because we are not a competitive manufacturer on world stage. Now, Lanka Tiles, from Lanka Tiles, I can say that because we used to run factories in India. I ran 7 lines in 7 factories in India in 2018, and 2018 we were probably the biggest importer of tiles to the country. We imported 1,500 containers that year from India. What we realized, we had our staff working in those factories. What we realized was, say, same glaze material we buy from the same supplier in Italy. When we pay 100 rupees a kilo, in India we paid 70 rupees a kilo. Right? To Sri Lanka, we could not buy it at 70 rupees. Because India could buy it because of the economies of scale. Machineries, same. When we pay $1 million for a machinery, India will buy it for $750,000. So our cost composition is very different, really. And those countries have massive advantages in operating as a manufacturing base, really. So Sri Lanka will always struggle like that, because people think, okay, if India can produce at this price, why can't you produce? We can't produce. Those are the reasons, really. It's like, say, for example, we sell a tile to Australia at sometimes say $6. Same tile we sell to Maldives at $10. So if you go to Maldives and say, okay, in Australia you can buy these for $5, why you can't buy it for $5 in Maldives? It's not a question, it's not a relevant question. So it's a very subjective thing. So, next 5 years depends on government policy, what the government is going to do. But if the present situation stands, you will be in for good times.
All right. So, what about the Royal Ceramics? What does future holds for Royal
See,
Ceramics?
yeah, as far as the costs are concerned, we had two different levels, as Mahendra said, but probably got little closer because of the costs are increasing elsewhere, probably a little faster than ours. But again, the differentiation also comes in. Your designs, your products, you do something differently. Not an easy thing, but in a limited manner we can do that, and you need to run a mean and lean operation so that you will continue to compete and make profits. So we are committed for that. We have shown that, I have told you that for many years we are not into prices, but we have managed to keep almost similar margins in the past. Into the future is a question mark, but it is something that we will continue. And
Future is bright.
yes, we
But actually, I need to qualify it. I need to qualify what I said by saying this. Now, you have to be watchful of supply chain disruptions. Now, that is something you need to watch, because we need to watch, because given the very precarious foreign currency position the Sri Lanka, the country is in, we have fears that our supply chain might get disrupted, because we are getting that kind of signals. Sometimes we find it difficult to open LCs to import raw materials, and sometimes we hear from our local suppliers of certain products that there is a possibility that they may run short of raw materials for their production process. So that should be borne in mind. So within those inverted commas, the future is bright.
Okay. So, Aravinda and Mahendra, thank you very much for joining with MarketPulse and sharing your insights with us. And also, despite the busy schedule, thank you so much for giving time for us as well. And
You're most welcome.
thank you for your invitations, SC Securities and FT.
yes, and thank you very much for watching MarketPulse. And we truly hope that we have been able to give you some insightful information about the tile sector, what you have been always looking for. And we will meet you soon again with another exciting episode.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.